one thing I like about France is there's lots of bookstores, there's lots of record stores, there's lots of magazines. The venues, it's kind of rough, but the culture blocks are here to keep things alive, and that's really helpful. A lot of stuff that has really atrophied in the US, you can still find here, which is a huge relief to encounter and not and realize it's not global, it's specific. The same conditions don't hold everywhere you go, which is comforting.
Hey everyone, welcome back to the All Music Matters on That podcast. I'm your host, Brian. And today we've got a special guest from somewhere in France. We got Evan, and I want to say like Sult in a way, because that's kind of the way I wanted to pronounce your last name. Was it like Sult or something?
Sult, that's me.
Okay. Yeah. And he's part of the group. Actually, he's a drummer and friend of Dave Eastman from the Open Flames, and I guess he's also part of the group in Paris there, the Tommy Crystal Band. So how you doing today, brother?
I'm doing great. I'm in Paris, as a matter of fact, where it is overcast, but I wouldn't trade it for anywhere else right now.
L'ami, say no more. So, actually, have you lived in Paris a good chunk of your life, or you just moved there recently?
Oh no, we just moved here last January, so it's pretty fresh. I'm still feeling it. Every time I walk out on the street, I'm like, wow, yeah, I'm on Faubourg Saint-Denis in Paris, and I love it.
That's cool. I guess you'll be able to talk about that in a little bit, but I guess what you been up to recently music-wise? I guess you said about a couple lakes, and looks like we got a good amount of ground to cover here too with being part of the Open Flames and this Atomic Crystal, but I guess what you been up to recently?
Well, let's see. I mean, so my little bit of backstory is that I came up in Seattle and was in Harvey Danger for a while. And we had our big song and life went crazy for a bit. And then as that band came to a close, I moved to Chicago and had a band called Bound Stems. And then that band was exciting. And then I met an amazing gal named Paige, and she and I have had a band called Sleepy Kitty for a really long time. And we moved that band from Chicago to St. Louis along the Mississippi River. And we put out 3 albums and a bunch of EPs and stuff. And then we moved ourselves to Brooklyn, and we were in Brooklyn for a few years. And then we moved ourselves to Paris, where we met a really talented guitarist and singer at an open mic. And we played a show as a 4-piece with a bassist as well. And that was so clearly not Sleepy Kitty, the 2-piece thing that we'd been doing for so long, that we really felt it deserved a new name, which was how we got to the Tommy Crystal. And so we've been working kind of as hard as we can on the Tommy Crystal. We have 2 songs out. Well, the first one was called Reservations, and the second one is called Coney Island. And that's been definitely occupying our time and stuff. While meanwhile, during the pandemic, I reconnected with my friend from high school days, Dave Eastman, who now lives in London, and that's how we got going on the Open Flames. And because he was working with me, he was working with Paige, because we do everything together, basically. So that band put out an album earlier this year, right? I think. Maybe it was the end of last year. And we're getting really close on finishing our second album, the Open Flames second album. So I'm also working with a gal named Sarah Ferrec here in Paris, who is an amazing singer-songwriter who's been kind of converting her energy into a live band stuff where I get to help arrange the songs and things. But yeah, I'm really normally a monogamous drummer. So balancing at least 3 bands at a time is a whole new thing for me.
Hmm. I was say I think people are gonna mistake you for the bass player, given the bass in the background.
Yeah, there are never enough drummers either, though. That's for sure.
I guess so. So, so you and Dave were actually good friends back in high school. I guess I'm trying to remember too, because man, I think it actually might have been 2 years now. I think about it when I had interviewed him at some point.
Oh yeah.
You know, I should have actually checked out his interview just to kind of rehash and everything there too. So I guess you guys kind of went your separate ways after high school. I guess you guys really stayed in touch. Like he was like, "Hey, I got this band here."
Yeah, I mean, well, he threw. So I moved to Bellingham, Washington, where he lives. Our in U.S. version of 10th grade, and in I guess our junior year, so we all became friends. We had a whole circle of friends, and Dave threw. At one point, he threw such an epic party that his family basically deported him from Washington State to Indiana. So we were kind of pulled apart from each other, and we kind of stayed in touch. I mean, that was the '90s, so like, staying in touch was literally writing each other letters and things like that. But then I moved to Seattle and started getting really into the rock scene in Seattle, and it was the '90s again, so it was like a great time to be checking out awesome bands. And he went into the Peace Corps, or was a great time to be getting in all kinds of trouble abroad. And then after his Peace Corps time, he ended up back in the States where, and I think kind of at random picked Seattle. And that's when we finally got back into touch after quite a long time. And then we kind of split off again because things were still mostly analog at that time. And then we kind of, I think Paige and I went to London in 2018, and I was like, oh, right, Dave is in London. And he and his wife, Serena, are really, we got to re-encounter each other, and that got them. By the time we were in pandemic times, that kind of got the idea of music flowing, and then since then we've been really. I go to London. I'm going to London this coming week, in fact, to work on that stuff. And he's come to Paris, and we've really had a chance to kind of, dig into his songs in a way that I would, when he was the guy who got me going in music in high school, I didn't know which end was up as far as songs, and now I have a better idea of how to build songs and stuff. So that's how we've been interacting, and it's great.
That's good. Yeah, I guess what's old Dave been up to recently? I guess I know you talked about trying to work on your second album, but yeah, go ahead.
He is a maniac for versions of his songs. Like, he'll write a song and then he'll send it to me in a disco style and in a goth style, and then he'll send it to me 2 days later in a country style. And he just kind of like, and then we're working on a song this coming week where he kept the melody but completely changed the subject of the song and all of the lyrics. So he really like works on a song and really just kind of like chews on it and thinks about it and kind of develops it. And then he and I get together and just kind of think of like work out what it is to have a real drummer in there, and just kind of how the dynamics can go up and down. Because he'll use, like a garage band drum track to kind of flesh out ideas. But that stuff doesn't have the dynamics of a real drummer. So then once we're in there, a whole new set of ideas occur. And I've been listening to the tracks in the meantime, So yeah, he's been working like crazy on new songs. We have like way more than enough songs for the next album, which is always an exciting position, because then you can, actually find a theme and find your favorites and, kind of, you have the luxury of leaving some things on the cutting room floor, which has not always been the case in the past and in projects I've worked on, you know. So that's cool. Dave is so good at working on the music, and I really I find that impressive. He doesn't just wait for the inspiration, you know. He's just like, he'll just take the song and do it again, and then take that song and do that again, and you know, it grows the songs.
Not only that, I think he kept himself busy because I know he talked about, I think it was sort of the Peace Corps work, but I guess it was more so in the charitable business. I think he said he was doing work in the Gaza, Israel area. I guess you got to help out in any charitable organizations too.
Do I?
Yeah.
I do some, not the way that Dave does. I mean, Dave is like full-time professionally a part of an NGO. I help out. I contribute to a organic consumers association in the U.S. When I lived in St. Louis, we lived right beside Monsanto, which is, you know, I could talk about them a lot, but they're like a fertilizer company and kind of like, you know, GMO company. It's a bunch of stuff that I'm not into. And then also Paige and I are both vegan, and so we contribute to PETA and, you know, kind of, and a bunch of public radio stuff, actually, which I would now put in the charitable giving. So, yeah.
I keep myself busy, so yeah. It's all right. It's all good. So, well, thank you so much for the work that you guys do out there, too. So, keep going strong, troopers.
Yeah.
But you did kind of give a little bit of your backstory, especially with jumping around various parts of the U.S., then coming over here to Europe. So I guess kind of still stick with the backstory question. I guess what really was the motivation to become Evan Sult, the guy he is today? To become like the musician and the drummer, that sort of stuff.
Oh, that's interesting. I didn't really play in high school. I started playing guitar because Dave Eastman really wanted to play, and he just pointed at each of us in our friend group, and he was like, you know, I need a guitarist, I need a drummer, I need another guitarist, I need bass. And I was not the guy selected for drums, but I was learning to play guitar. And then and then in college, so then I moved to Seattle in 1991, and it was a fascinating time to be there. I hadn't really understood yet that music was not just something that happened on, you know, kind of Planet Hollywood world, you know. I would listen to Def Leppard. I never thought I would be Def Leppard. I just thought there's a band and they've got big choruses. But when I got to Seattle, I started going to rock shows, you know, 300-person rock shows, and seeing and feeling what that was like. And it was incredible. You know, it's absolutely life-changing to be in the room as people are unfolding their songs in front of you. And I, you know, had just massive, I was impressed. I was intrigued. I lived in a house with some other musicians, and we had a drum set in the practice space down there. So I started learning on that instrument. I got really fascinated. And then there were a couple of albums that really convinced me as this like beginning drummer that I could do it, that I shouldn't wait to do it. The first one I would say was Built to Spill's first album, Ultimate Alternative Waivers. Excellent album, super excellent album, super clumsy drumming on some of it. And somehow that hearing of like these killer songs come out with like kind of clonkety drumming, I was like, oh, so that's cool. You can, you know, like you don't have to have Def Leppard's drummer, which is, you know, or anybody else's drummer to be ready to go on songs, and you don't have to be that guy. And then the other one was Silver Jew's Starlight Walker, which is their first release, basically. Still one of my favorite albums of all time. Incredible songs. And Bob Nastanovich, who was the kind of supplementary drummer from Pavement, kind of clonks his way through the drums in that. And I was just like, well, this is great. Like it sounds inspired. It doesn't sound skilled. It sounds real. And that, I feel like that and the kind of the Olympia scene gave me license to just not wait to be good, not wait to take lessons for a couple of years or read music or whatever, but just start playing and then see where that takes you. And Harvey Danger was composed of, it was guys from we all worked at the school paper together, and none of us had ever been in a band before. So we were all kind of learning this thing together, and we wrote all of our songs together. We would just go into the practice space and start, jamming, but like start working on some chords, and then that would imply a chorus, and our singer would flip through his notebook and start pulling out couplets he'd been working on or whatever. And it was just a really creative way of interacting with music with kind of no gatekeeping. So Harvey Danger had a surprise breakout hit, thanks to a radio DJ who, listened to our we made 800 copies of a CD on a tiny little New York label. But we had a big influential radio station in Seattle at that time that started playing it, and it picked up there. But as big as that song got, and we toured all over the country, and we went to some places in Europe, and it's still a song that you'll hear all the time. What really stuck with me, what really I think is fundamental, is that spirit of like the reason I think I'm always in indie rock, not rock and roll, or in this kind of thing that is one of the roots of punk, is I just believe in inspiration over technique every time. And I believe in listening for what a song needs, not for whether you should do triplets or quarter notes. It wasn't until the pandemic that I finally learned to play a freaking paradiddle properly, so I was never a technique guy, but I've played, for 30 years now. And it's, to me, that's its own measure of, I've played, I've not just played, but I've played on stages, and I've toured and enjoyed the whole process for the whole time, because it's a weird life, so yeah, that's the Evan MO.
That's pretty cool. I guess, did you, I know you talked about some of your charitable stuff earlier, but were you always kind of like working the multiple jobs on top of this whole career being a musician?
Yeah, kind of. For me, so like I say, Seattle was the ground zero, and it was there that I would walk down the street and see rock posters literally stapled to the telephone poles, and I'd think like, oh cool, Mudhoney's playing on Friday at the Crocodile, but also, wow, what a cool poster. So I got really kind of into these artifacts of rock, and started figuring out who made them and things like that, and then what record labels these bands were on, but also working at the school paper where we were writing about music, and we were going to see stuff, and we were taking photos, and we were publishing. So for me, making music, making the art associated with music, whether it's the posters or the album art or whatever, writing about music and getting the word out about it, like publishing, is all the same act. It's all drummers are the graphic designers of music, of rock. So I've always been a graphic designer while being a musician, and that's still true today. Part of that is like, the day jobbery of earning the scratch, but part of that is just they're the same thing. I will say I don't like 98% of what design jobs are. Like, I don't want to do anything for Coca-Cola. I don't want to do anything for Meta. It's like I don't care about that stuff at all. But I love designing for bands. I love designing books. I love designing magazines. All of the things all of the means by which a community communicates with each other, I think is what makes rock music not just a theoret, not just guitar, bass, drums, vocals, but a culture, So for me, the continuing to push the culture aspect of the music forward is just as important as anything I do on drums, But if I could, I would probably be drumming every day, which I'm not currently, but I'm drumming a lot of the time now, but not quite as. But I am doing either drumming or graphics for music or editing or sending a magazine to print or whatever it is that keeps this world rolling.
Keeps the gears turning. I think that's the thing you're looking for. So, and I know I'm jumping ahead here too, but I guess how bad do you think AI is in this day and age here too, with everyone trying to hop on board the train and see where it goes? You think it's kill people like your jobs? That sort of thing?
I honestly, I can get too, I can go to the blackest black with this. I do think it's a cataclysmic technology that the best thing that's going for it is that it's so fresh that we could still maybe stop it. But I think it is, I truly think it's just a destructive force attempting to replace all of us with these like crappy refractions of all of our work. And I hate it so much. I hate it. And Paige and I'm pretty unrelenting on social media about just like, get the hell off of that stuff. Don't get addicted to it. Don't use it. Don't think that you can get away with it, with using it just here and here. I think it's bad for communication. I think it's bad for I think it's terrible. I think it's terrible. And I'll stop now because there's kind of no end to the amount of, it's like I truly think it makes everything worse. And I think it's the opposite of community. And I think it's the opposite of, the human touch. It's the opposite of truth. It's the opposite of creativity. It's the opposite. It's just, the never-ending story. Remember the never-ending story? The bad guy of the never-ending story is not some evil character. It's just the nothing, and it's just like this encroaching, empty, white shape that's just kind of like destroying their community and making it smaller and smaller, and it really feels like it's the nothing. That's what AI feels like, just this kind of void that's going to take us out of our job. It's trying to take us out of our jobs, trying to take us out of our music, trying to take us out of our fun. And I won't stand for it as best I can.
Yeah, I can see. But I have brought up in other interviews, and I would say some of the stuff that actually really does help. And believe it or not, there's actually a feature on StreamYard that allows you like create like AI clips for like other interviews, and then you could upload those like to be the shorts or the YouTube or the Facebook Reels, that sort of stuff. So
like it auto edits your work, or it creates something.
Apparently, it takes what it believes to be like the best parts of like an interview, for instance, and then they'll take those little segments. I think some of the ones like Opus clips, they'll give you like the little subtitles, so it's like what they're talking about, that sort of stuff. They're supposed to time too. So yeah,
there's technology within it that like translation apps use AI that I don't know how to do without them, because I can't find a way around them. But I'm not saying there's no, generative AI is certainly the one that I have the most most deep-seated disdain for. But there are, there are tools. But let me tell you, it's a slippery slope, and you're better off not getting involved, is my opinion. But I don't think you should smoke cigarettes. I don't think you should eat animals. So, I got a lot of strong opinions.
Yeah. Actually, do you think it's kind of the same way with social media, or do you see the better uses with social media than you do with AI?
Oh, I mean, social media is just a way of connecting people. It's not, I mean, it has a lot of negative effects, because it's like, the algorithms feed fan flames all the time, and it encourages people to kind of speak anonymously and stuff like that. But at least it's people speaking with people. AI is just, it's not people. It's the dead-eyed soul of nothingness. I think it's every villain in every story. Whereas I just think that social media does not bring out our best for the most part. But if you read Rebecca Solnit, if you read, there's plenty of people that you can read. Plenty of people in my feed who are both well known and or just friends from cities and I've lived in or toured through, who drop nuggets of information that I wouldn't have gotten any other way. So on a human level, I do feel like social media has actually made an interesting expansion of the human community, which is the opposite of AI.
That's good. I guess just real quick, what social media are you on so people could check you out, and I guess also check out your music too?
Oh yeah. Well, I'm on Facebook as Evan Sult. I am on Instagram roughly under my name, Evan C. Sult. But also the Tommy Crystal is the relevant one. The Open Flames, and sometimes Sleepy Kitty Arts, and sometimes Sleepy Kitty Music. So there's lots of paths. It's hard to keep up with them all. We don't have our X account anymore because, why? We all know why. And I wasn't about to move over to Blue Sky. Like, it's hard enough to just keep Facebook and Instagram rolling, yeah, but that's where I am in. And then the Tommy Crystal has a Linktree site, and a Bandcamp and stuff. So that's going to be a good place to keep track of that. And the Open Flames has the same. So yeah.
Yeah, actually, I would say he did reach out to me through Facebook, but when I reached out to Dave Eastman way back in the day, it was through Facebook too.
Facebook, so. I mean, I recognize that there's a kind of a growing generational divide, with people, and Facebook is I think for those of us who really hit their social media stride at a certain era. But to me, I like that I can read, somebody can post 10 words or 1,500 words. I like to read, on social media. I like funny memes and stuff too, but I think it's an interesting place. I like I have lots of messages going with other people. It's a way to reach out to people that I've never actually spoken to in person before. So I'm a believer. I know people do that with Instagram and stuff too. I don't know how people keep track of like 5 different whatevers, plus your email. I have so many email accounts for so many different things. I just feel like at a certain point, you just have to say like, I'm not going to get a Twitch account. I'm not, I don't have time.
Unless you're a gamer, then you can make a Twitch account.
Yeah.
All right. Leave that up to you there too. But you're from this guy right here, so make sure you guys go check him out on those socials right there. But I guess moving on, since you mentioned about Tommy Crystal a little bit.
Yeah.
This one seems to be maybe more the main project, and then Open Flames seems to be a close second. But go ahead and talk about Tommy Crystal a little bit. And I guess we can also jump into gear that you use for that too if you want.
Yeah. Well, The Tommy Crystal. So Sleepy Kitty was Paige and I have been doing for a long time, and that's the two of us. So she sings and plays guitar, and she has a looper for her guitar and a looper for her voice and a bunch of effects for both as well. But the loopers allow her to kind of, you know, I mean, they're live grabbed stuff. So we could kind of build extra voices on the harmonies on the choruses and some of the stuff, because she's got so many musicians in one person that you kind of have to figure out routes to get some of them out in front of you. But we never had like a click track or anything, so as a drummer I had to figure out how to like get good at hearing her guitar through the return. And then when we started doing the Tommy Crystal, it was, we'd done 3 albums as Sleepy Kitty and a bunch of EPs. We did an EP of kind of Hamilton songs from the musical Hamilton in the style of Guided by Voices, which was one of my favorites. And a few other EPs of various stuff. And we just felt like it was a good time to be fresh, but then we'd also moved to a new country. And then Julien, this guy we met at this open mic, he's kind of from a different world from us. He's been playing for 20 some years, but he's not really been performing, and he's kind of been more acoustic based, but his voice was so automatically clearly well matched to Paige's that we just asked him the same night we met him, like, hey, do you want to get together and they'll, you guys can sing some harmonies. He did a one-person version of the Kinks' Waterloo Sunset that was just kind of, show-stopping. So then the more we started working with him, and then we brought in our friend Pablo to play bass, who's a real talented guy in his own merits. We ended up finding that the kind of 90s inflected rock that Paige and I were doing was meeting Julien's kind of 60s psych inflected guitar playing and vocal harmony instincts, and creating this thing that we just really had never done before. And it's just been beautiful. Like, we're, our first song, Reservations, is a real rocker that kind of came from when Paige and I were kind of working stuff out on our own. And then and Coney Island is a real sweet song with some really nice harmonies. But man, we have some songs going now that are so dreamy, and other ones that are so just like emotionally expressive in a way that only kind of harmonies can do. We have one song that Paige wrote in English called Moonlight, that she sings solo, but then he'll sing harmonies on. He kind of came in and started doing harmonies on, and then that got translated into French, Clair de Lune, it's called, and we have a version where he sings lead on that and she sings harmonies. And it's 2 different songs, it's like the arrangements are pretty similar, but they're having there's 2 different languages. So there's all of that, but there's also just like having a female protagonist and a male harmony kind of coloring what she's saying, versus having a male protagonist and a female character coloring. It just creates a whole different story, like 2 different stories with the same. I mean, you could do them in the same language, but then the fact that we also do them in 2 different languages just, I think, adds to the, how much you can squeeze out of one song. So that's like, I'm really excited about the Tommy Crystal. We've got a few more songs that we're working on in the studio right now. We've got 10 more that are kind of at various stages of completion. Julien just got a delay pedal for the first time that has really suddenly enriched his guitar sound. So he's suddenly got all of these like, reverse guitar effects and shimmer and things that just like, it's rich, man, And then it turned out after we'd been playing for a while, we went in the studio and he sat down on the piano and played some, Bach, and we were like, oh, I didn't even know. So, so there's really, we're at that great point in a band where you kind of can't see the horizon. It's just like, there's just nothing but more, fertile territory to explore. So that band's been super great. The challenge is that Julien lives in Bordeaux, which is like 2.5 hours from us. So we got to make that work. But we've been playing great shows in Paris, and we've played in Lille and Bordeaux and Bruxelles, and so we've been playing around France, and we want to be playing more in France. Our shows have been really great. It's been good responses, and for me, having toured the U.S. a ton, touring, but somehow never getting back to Europe for a long time, being able to finally, play go to new cities that I hadn't seen before, with a new band in the, on the train or in the van, whatever it is really exciting, So, and then Open Flames, like you say, is a different project, in part because Dave lives in London and we live in Paris. But that one's just a real creative outlet for Dave and for Paige and me to kind of help fill in his vision as creatively as we can. So it's like, we're not responsible for the lyrics, we're not responsible for the melody, so we can be responsible, so we can have fun with the other stuff in a way that's a little different than if you're writing the songs yourself, So
yeah. Actually, I did interview. I was actually a guy also named Julien as well, but he's actually part of the French death metal band Go Rod. So
yeah.
That's why I kind of laughed at first. But he also has his whole bandmates are in Bordeaux as well.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Well, I'd be shocked if it was the same Julien, but who knows?
Be a dual identity, that sort of thing.
Yeah, totally.
Right. But did you mention what kind of drum set you use? Like what sort of brand it is, as well as the brand of sticks?
So gear wise, what I have found is, I've always had a Tama set. I had a Tama Rockstar when I started. That was my first kind of real drum set, that took me through a bunch of Harvey Danger stuff. And then I have had a Tama Star Classic for a long time now. What drew me to him was I just love the Tama kick drum sound. I just feel like it has a real boom that I don't, most drum sets are sufficiently awesome, but I feel like Tama really has a special sound there. And then I like to use, my cymbals and stuff are whatever they are. I love them, but they're just kind of a mongrel set. The fun thing, I think, is the stick bag. And I've been getting really in St. Louis, in Paris, I've been really getting into just kind of grabbing my stick bag and going, because we practice at various spaces around the city. And I've got, I actually went in, now I'm not going to know the name of the stick, but I went in to Guitar Center a few years ago and was like, I need a stick that's less thunderously loud, because we had a really loud practice space. So I tried literally every stick at Guitar Center on the same cymbal, just ding, 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 ding. Grab the next one, tang, 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 ka-dang, ka-dang. And I had never done that before, and I was shocked at how completely different. And it's not just like nylon tip versus wood tip. the amount of difference that the stick sound itself makes on the set was a real surprise to me. And as a result, I ended up with maybe the ugliest of all the sticks, which is a neon green dip, wooden tip. That, like I say, I can't remember the name of. I'm like the bright green ones. Those are mine. But they're dipped with a not just a paint, but the kind of grip stuff, which I like for live shows. But then in practice, I always hood my gear with cut up t-shirts and use the hot rods, just because it's otherwise so loud. It's just like I just don't need to be, because I hit really hard, and I like to get really excited with the, washy hi-hats and get the, pan behind the head, and then I really like these tambourine sticks. I don't know if you've ever seen them. You can get them in a pair. I only use one at a time, but they're like a kind of square-headed thing that has a tambourine that sounds so good. You can play your set while playing the tambourine. Various shakers. One of the great things that a piece of gear that I really appreciate, I don't have it in Paris right now, but I will, is so simple. It's just a little, it's a percussion table that you screw onto a stand. And man, the day I got that in my Chicago band Bound Stems, because I had a bunch of shakers and, rattles and different things, that just changed my life, because I then could, I could really get to where I could drum and like grab something and be shaking and then pick up another, I had a landing pad for all my stuff, and I could set up my gear on the stand so that I knew where it was. I didn't have to even look. That was one of the single most important pieces of gear I've ever gotten, Now I don't have it here, but I will. It's hard to move stuff across the Atlantic Ocean, it turns out. So
that's pretty cool. And I don't know, you said stick bag at first. It was like, was that not to be funny, that sort of way, that sort of deal? So that's what I was kind of sparking.
Well, now what I'm really looking for now is a cymbal bag with the wheels, and a soft cymbal bag with the wheels and pull out handle. Can't find one around here, but the cymbal bag across the shoulder, after a while, it's just, my cymbals are heavy, man. Because I like 2 crashes, some, decently heavy hats, and a big old ride. So it, after a while, you're like, why am I putting all that crushing weight on my shoulders just to get to a gig? So now the stuff that I really like is the is the carrying components,
I would say, did you say you use Zildjian cymbals, or what kind of brand are your cymbals?
The combination Zildjian and Sabian, yeah. Okay. And there's a Paiste here and there, because when I was touring a bunch, I was hitting really hard and cracking cymbals eventually. So I was kind of grabbing on the road, like you just have to run into a Guitar Center and kind of bang on a bunch of cymbals, see what really worked. But I feel like the Zildjian hats and Zildjian or Sabian crashes, and I have an old Ping Ride. Must be a Ping Ride that it's the thing. I never look at their names anymore, because I just put them on the stands and go. So I'm not a gearhead in the way that, honestly, I'm more of a gearhead about Page's pedals and guitars than I am about the drums, because there's so many cool sounds on guitar that you can make. So that's where I put a lot of my kind of gear fantasizing.
Actually, that bass behind you, and I guess even some of the stuff hanging on the wall right there, is the bass kind of a emergency situation, or does that get used at all?
That actually, well, that's one of, there's three guitars on the wall, and counting that one. Uh, that's Paige's, her first instrument was bass. Um, so that gets pulled down for songwriting sessions more now because it's on the wall, you know. One of the things that we've learned over time is like, you got to put your instruments within reach, you know. Oh, that's another piece of gear, I will say. I got a Roland electronic set during the pandemic because all the practice spaces were closed. And man, that was awesome. Like, I can get into electronic drums. I mean, my dream set right now would be actually two drum sets, a fully acoustic drum set and a fully electric drum set on stage that I could physically move between. I know people like to do blended sets, but to me, I like showing the audience what thing I'm playing rather than playing something that looks acoustic but has like wow, wow, wow sounds on it, or, you know, God forbid, a tambourine that you can't see but you can only hear, and that means there's a track somewhere. For me, I really like, you know, if I see somebody playing an electronic drum set, I'm like, okay, cool. They have that palette, whatever that can be. If I see them playing an acoustic set, I know that too. So, yeah, I think both things can be really valid. And I've actually been really appreciating how much the electronic set kind of opens the brain up to, you know, well, to more than anything, to appreciating the 80s is really what it does. Because you get all of those great, like, gung 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 sounds that you know that really required a lot of cocaine and a lot of reverb in the studio at the time.
I guess so. You know, I keep thinking it's more like maybe sort of like the Phil Collins, whenever you got the whole famous dun 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 dun.
Yeah, which you know, I think it's fair to say he was into both reverb and cocaine and gates. That's the other thing. It's like, so it goes doo, doo, doo. That's such a great, that like limit, you know, like huge reverb, but then those cuts to keep it from getting in the way of itself is pretty cool. And I feel like electronic drums give me access to that in a way I dig.
Actually, the way you kind of describe your set, it's almost like, I want to keep going back to Neil Peart, because I'm sure there's plenty of drummers who have like the extended editions sets of like numerous toms, chimes, bells, that sort of stuff. But I guess even in your youth, or I guess when you started really taking drumming a lot serious, I guess who have you really got up to in terms of drumming? I guess even living deceased now, because unfortunately we lost a good amount of classic rock musicians and people in other genres there too. So,
yeah. For me, I mean, honestly, for me, like I said, those two albums were so important to me because the drummers were not good, which seems kind of funny to say, but it was really crucial. But then the music where I started getting really excited about drumming. Well, I got excited about the first time I was able to understand that I could play music because people who I could relate to were playing music was Pavement. I was like, wow, Pavement really got me. The drumming I still really relate to a lot. And then a band that never gets enough credit for being a cool drummer, because he's not a flashy drummer, but he's a real songwriting drummer, is Jim Eno from Spoon. I think is just a fantastic thinker in terms of in his drumming, and I get a lot of inspiration from that. And then I think, you know, both Mo Tucker and, you know, the two-piece version of White Stripes, you know, I think that's just there's a kind of brilliance in that drumming that is so hard to do. People talk about like, well, it's so simple, but it's like, you try not doing a fill for 2 minutes. Like, go ahead, try, like, do it on a song. Don't do any fills for 2 minutes. Just the main part and the B part. And hardly any drummer can. So I really like those pathways. And then I really got into Unwound as a super cool. Sarah, the drummer of Unwound, was super cool, and a band that not many people know about, but I listened back to them recently and was like, oh shoot, turns out I took a lot of inspiration from them. Is a band that was on Sub Pop called Six Finger Satellite. Their album, The Pigeon is the Most Popular Bird, is a really weird, I think it's like, whatever, 14 songs, and then in between every song is an intercalary instrumental thing. And it's kind of it's rockin', but it also has like kind of jagged synths. Brainiac was a band that toured with them a bunch, and they went way more in the heavy synth, like nasty synth direction. But that Pigeon is the Most Popular Bird album, for people who like kind of heavy that isn't metal music, that's some good shit. And then of course, the more I got into drums, I was like, okay, John Bonham is absolutely, top of the line, and I will never countenance anyone who says that Ringo Starr is anything less than a brilliant singular drummer, who helped really chart the course of 20th century, 21st century popular music by, again, equal parts ingenuity and restraint. One of the coolest things in that whole Get Back 9 hours or however long that was all the times that you see Paul, especially like when he's literally working on Get Back, and he's just like, you can hear him kind of like carving away. He's got this block and he's carving his way towards Get Back. And Ringo is there the whole freaking time, not playing, not fiddling around, not kind of making jokes. He's just there. And then the second that you start to hear something that you're like, wait, because meanwhile, John's been playing this thing and you're like, that's not right. Or Paul's been playing this thing and you're like, that chord's not right, Paul. That's not Get Back. That's, you haven't got it yet. And he's just whittles his way down. And then like the second you're like, wait a minute, that's Get Back, Ringo starts playing. And it's just like, it's just a one fraction of, of the proof that Ringo is a great drummer. But that, man, again, the hardest thing for a drummer to do, I think, a lot of the time is to just shut the fuck up and just not play your instrument until it's time to play your instrument, So those are some of my influences that I think are super impressive. And then I don't know if you get into the Fall, but I'm super into basically all of the eras of the Fall, of which there are many, and some of them are two drummer eras, which are really clattery, but super cool. So yeah, those are probably the big ones.
I always remember Ringo Starr as Mr. Conductor when he was on the Top of the Tank Engine series doing the voiceovers or the narrated voice.
That's funny. I just have never had a TV, so I miss so many things that are TV derived. But I think of him post Beatles as kind of the peace love guy. But then, man, Get Back was such a cool document of such an intense legendary musical moment, but just kind of like these guys that did so much stuff, and when they broke up, they were like 26 or something when they had done all of their best work, not all of their best work, but so like this world-changing work. It's just kind of, it was amazing to see that just this view on the kind of the most well-viewed band in history. And it's like, oh, here's hours and hours of footage of them in their prime that you haven't seen. It was so great.
Just a bit. You actually tried to do the imitation of them walking through Abbey Road, weren't you? At least where the nice little crosswalk is there, because that's what we did when we went to
Yeah, well,
London, Paris.
you gotta, yeah.
Sort of prerequisite. So
I have friends who just recently recorded there. And actually, there's an awesome story about a St. Louis band that recorded at Abbey Road during that exact time. They were a bunch of high school teenagers whose mother manager kind of somehow convinced the label to have them recording. So like when the Beatles weren't there, this band was called the Aravons. When the Beatles weren't in the studio and Pink Floyd wasn't in the studio, the Aravons were in the studio. So they're using all of the same technicians, all of the same gear, all of the same amps. And like, I mean, it's unreal how much their album sounds like, you know, you hear the piano and you're like, that's the Lady Madonna piano. And it's like, yeah, it is. It's literally like they're probably recorded within the same, you know, 3-week period of each other. So it's surreal and cool. And I definitely recommend checking out they did a recent reissue on vinyl of that album. It's got a fascinating story, but yeah. Abbey Road, man.
Abbey fucking Road. That'll deal. So yeah. Definitely see why. But much respect to Ringo. We're still going strong in the All-Star band there too.
Yeah.
So all right. But I always remember as Mr. Conductor from Opposite Tank Engine there too. So
Fair
most
enough.
of them too. So
Yeah.
that's how I was introduced to him. And I was like, oh wait, he was the drummer for the Beatles.
Oh, wow.
Oh, it was that sort of deal. Okay, I see how it
Wow.
works. So
Yeah, I mean, it's funny. Sometimes you get the other thing first, you know. I heard the first version of Baby You Can Drive My Car was a Bobby McFerrin version, which is like, you know, all a cappella stuff. And I mean, it's kind of a cool version, but really you should hear the Beatles version first before you hear that. Just like I think I heard Stop Dragging My Car Around by Weird Al before I ever heard Stop Dragging My Heart Around. You know, and you kind of can't hear the original right if you hear the you know, the
we always say the parody version.
Yeah.
We want to say
Yeah.
All right. That's all cool. But great choices for the influences nonetheless. All right. So I know you mentioned about COVID a couple times because it seems like the whole move to Paris and I guess even getting into the whole music thing. Probably, I think you mentioned it was almost like you took a break and then you came back to it, but I could be wrong. But regardless, how bad was COVID for you on a personal level, family wise, and fill in the audience, I guess, what you're doing music wise at the time?
I mean, no disrespect to anyone who went through hard times, but I had a fantastic COVID. Like I really, I mean, it was scary. Like, you know, it was like, we'll hopefully never go through anything like that again, where the entire world stopped and it just didn't even make sense to have ambitions for a while, you know, and the US went socialist for a while. And, like, you know, I was getting checks for not working, which I earned by not working. But by chance, Paige and I we had been living in New York, but we had gone, you know, our plan was to go for a week back to her parents' house outside St. Louis in the woods, like with the creek. I mean, it's a very idyllic place. And that was the week of, you know, we landed on whatever, March 10th, 2020. And, you know, they closed Broadway and and like all of a sudden the US just kind of closed down and we were there for 5 months. And for all my, I instantly lost my job. We didn't know if there was going to be, garbage pickup at our where we were, and we didn't know if we could get food. And it was a deeply, I think all of us saw the world kind of suddenly be insecure in a way that you never encountered before. But what ended up happening in our case was it was Paige and me and her mom and dad, and my drum set just happened to be in their basement, in their basement. Yeah. So then I pulled it out and set it up in the garage, and it was just getting into spring, and I could play. I mean, I will always appreciate that her parents just let me play for hours a day. Meanwhile, Paige was learning French. So I finally learned the paradiddle. I had a drum line friend kind of send me some basic exercises. So I learned the accents and, ran patterns on accents and just kind of like played. Like I'd only really played drums to write music in bands, like Sonic Youth used to say, like, we don't practice, we play. And I always kind of appreciated that approach. But this was the first time I was like, oh, well, actually I can just actually practice, and come up with beats and come up with more beats and just kind of learn to do things with my hands that I couldn't, and feet that I couldn't do before. So for me, COVID was this like beautiful time. And meanwhile, like no other bands were going on tour, no one was releasing albums. No one was playing shows. Like you just couldn't even miss things, you couldn't even they closed South by Southwest. Like you couldn't, there was nothing to be like, you weren't sidelined while somebody else got ahead. You were just, everyone was sidelined. And I think that is a big gift to all of us that, plenty of people were going through health emergencies and crises that we're just completely fucked up. And I'm talking about things that aren't that. But one of the weird gifts of that time, if you were secure in the various ways that we were fortunate to be secure in, was that you really just you didn't have to, there's kind of no comparative distances between people. Everyone was kind of equally up to their own devices, and not, you didn't exist relative to other people. It says, somebody might release a neat little video over here, but it was like, it just was a completely different way of operating in the musical world. Paige and I got really into, we started kind of DJing for each other just to kind of be interested in new things. And we got really into like acid rock from Cambodia in the 60s and like cool 70s Beninese kind of like voodoo funk, and like this cool French music from the 70s and 80s and 90s, and just really got super into this unusual was kind of music that I never would have, never would have had the attention span for, and wouldn't have had the ability to kind of relate. I would have always related it back to myself, but I will say during COVID, I did not want to hear indie rock. That's not where my head was at all. But it was in all of these places I had never even thought to look, So I would say for me, it was a gigantic learning time. I also became a better cook for sure. Because, you could, because you weren't going out. And really made me appreciate life. And after COVID, kind of the restrictions eased up, and also it just seemed less insane to go out. Well, I immediately got COVID. That's one of the things that happened. going to a show by Adakak, who's one of the African musicians I learned about from that time. Wasn't his fault. Um, but I feel like, kind of letting the world bleed back into our lives was exciting and was a loss. We really only get one of those things that we all went through. I hope for everyone that they had the best one that they could have. I'm sad for everyone who had a terrible time during that time. I did know some people who had some really bad things happen, but man, there's just some things that we'll never collectively experience again that way. Even if there were another, worldwide calamity, it wouldn't be like COVID was, where we were all just like, whoa, no way. It was in a weird way an innocent time.
Hindsight is always 2020. So
yeah.
I can see why. So, but it is good to see you and the family are doing well there too. And
yeah,
you do bring it up here too, because you see in other interviews people mention about how they would get it. And it's almost like I felt like I was going to die. Certain moments there.
Yeah.
So, or you people losing family and friends. So
Yeah.
It's sort of good therapy sort of question. So I get off your chest.
Yeah. Well, and I don't want to forget it either. Like I feel like there's a real move. Like we just never talk about it. I just never hear anybody talk about COVID. We started moving on and people were like, well, the economy's not in good shape. And it was like, well, yeah, no shit. Like we went through a once ever experience and they're like, well, but the markets are down. It's like, yeah, because it was a totally crazy anomaly, and people just tried to like sew it into the common experience, this like really serious blip that happened. And I just like, I'm glad you asked, because I think it's a really interesting thing. Every single one of us has a COVID experience, a COVID era experience. And I never hear anybody talk about it with me, around other people, online. I just never hear about it. So I support remembering that time.
I think if it's online, then it's probably going to be the conspiracy theorists saying about this and that. So
yeah, they're no help.
No idea. Yeah, that's for sure. But once again, good to see you and the family are doing well there too. And good to see the band still going strong.
Yeah.
But I guess since COVID here too, maybe even a little bit before, I think even though you mentioned about jumping from here and there, I don't know where you're at in like certain years, to be honest, but from your perspective, before COVID and even after COVID, how do you think the music scene's been from your perspective?
Oh man, that's another thing. Like the COVID experience was such a gate through which the music world passed, and has never been the same. New York is not, it's not the city that never sleeps anymore. It really, like, that city it's hard to find something to eat after 10 p.m. That didn't used to be the case. Rock clubs are having a really hard time. They were already having a hard time, but now it's just super hard. The touring bands, leaving aside insane gas prices, like the way that clubs operate with their deals has really changed. A bunch of the clubs that would do night shows 7 nights a week are now more like 4 nights a week. It's just everything changed as far as how live music operates. Not everything. It's been, individual nights can still make sense in the old way, but the method of doing things really has changed, and not for the better, I think. So that is a bummer. Like it's super hard to understand how anybody makes money making music, which, from an outside perspective, people can be like, why do you want to make money? You're making music, or they can be like, well, whatever. They have some other impression, like if you're making music, you are making lots of money. I can assure almost everyone that almost no one is making more money than they're spending. Um, but man, yeah, it's gotten so much harder and now with gas prices, like, I don't know. I mean, everything is conspiring, and with fucking AI, everything is conspiring against
the human race, if you want to say it that way.
well, yes, that is one argument, but against like the musicians being able to make a living. One thing I decided at one point was just to stop leaning on it for any money at all, um, which I could do because of the job that I had at the time, and the whatever, like the way that my life was organized. I can't apply it to everybody. I don't have some secret stash of wealth. I just, like, my world was working at that time, and it really helped. Like, Sleepy Kitty had been pushing so hard for so long, and we were doing it through a combination of the shows we were doing, albums we were selling, the posters we were making, like, kind of globally, just making stuff all the time. But it was every month you're just like, how are we gonna do it this month? And this time, at the time when I just, like, took money out of the picture, it really helped. But then eventually, I don't know. I just think it's really a bummer if we're just going to a place where you just can't make money doing music. And obviously it's not about making money. That's not why you make music, I hope. But money is what makes it possible to do things. So it would be great if I saw more promise in how people are going to earn money to keep making music. We're about to hopefully start renting a new space, and that's going to take money, and we're going to need the band to produce the money to have that space. But the whole ecosystem is damaged. Like, the clubs are damaged, the record stores are damaged. Thankfully there are still some record stores, but they have been through some really hard times, and it's not getting any easier. One thing I like about France is there's lots of bookstores, there's lots of record stores, there's lots of magazines. The venues, it's kind of rough, but the culture blocks are here to keep things alive, and that's really helpful. A lot of stuff that has really atrophied in the US, you can still find here, which is a huge relief to encounter, and not and realize it's like, it's not global, it's specific. The same conditions don't hold everywhere you go. It's just comforting.
Yeah, I can see why. So I was trying to figure the joke there too, especially when it came to, like, always conspired against the human race, that sort of deal. Or, I know I bring it up, but I always like bringing, like, Terminator scenarios. It was almost like James Cameron was a prophet or something like that. So,
yeah, well, I mean, I think people are right to be worried about, like, tech's ability to, suddenly snuff out the human race, because I think there's a lot of, like, interesting doomsaying about AI's ability to protect itself and all those things. But I think way before that is the likelihood that we're going to have, tens, if not hundreds of millions of people suddenly not having jobs, kind of all at the same time, without there being any kind of economic system change. It's just a whole lot of unemployed people, and that's when you get the first really crazy stuff, is when you have that. So I hope that doesn't come to pass. Down with AI. Up with the human race.
Actually, I don't know if you ever got to South Park too. When I know you mentioned it haven't really had much of TV, but there were some sort of skits into this pretty big on satire. It was like they kept bringing in these people who were, I think, from the future, but it was kind of meant to be like the whole thing with immigrants coming in, and then you got just these random white redneck guys who are like, they took our jobs, kind of deal. So,
well, That may be our future travelers yet.
I guess so. But check carefully, good soldier. And once again, it's good to see the music scene is doing something. I know it's not perfect, but it's at least something.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, I just went last night. I was at a show, and I was so well. It was there was a band called Special Friend. They're Paris based. They're fantastic. 2/3 piece. And then a band that I hadn't seen from the UK called Death Crash. Don't love their name, but they were playing this kind of early aughties, lots of and maybe 90s, lots of space, like really slow, like late, super pulled back tempos with a lot of restraint, and the songs were built on this slowly increasing dynamic crescendo that I made me think of the Bedhead and the New Year and Seam and Slint and kind of these, just a kind of music that I honestly didn't think anyone was practicing anymore. I thought it existed on, not even hardly on vinyl. It really existed on CD, maybe some vinyl, and it was a form that had passed from the earth. But I'll be damned, these 20-somethings were playing this thing that when I was 20-something would have really loved, and it really, I was just so happy to hear, it is life affirming to go out and see music, play live music, see live music, not like live music at a restaurant, but like, 300 person rooms. That's where it's at. You want to live a vivid life, go see rock in a 300 cap room, and don't forget to dance when the band is playing. It's just so much richer if you jump up and down. It's richer for you, it's richer for the band. It sounds better and it's more exciting. Get near the front, live it. The band's on stage, you're in the audience, like you both have your regions where you get to go fucking nuts and enjoy yourself and make the most, So to me, that's kept rock life interesting,
I would say within legal bounds, we don't want to hurt anybody there.
Oh yeah. We're not, and then,
it's not a metal show.
One thing that does seem like it's passed from the earth is any understanding of how to properly mosh. I feel like, crowds, I will say the way to do it is a counterclockwise motion during the verses, and then when it gets to the heavy part, then everybody jumps up and down, and then when it gets to the restrained part, then everybody kind of like moves in a kind of like you're bumping against each other, but you're just building energy, and then you release it when it goes big. And people now, there's just so much like just bashing into each other in a way that's just not, it's not right. It's just not, it's a brutish way to experience music when really, pogoing and the kind of circle mosh are the way to enjoy each other's company and get that sweat on each other. But, without the fucking, broken jaw or black eye or whatever, comes along from bad moshing.
I would say you had a bad experience moshing, didn't you?
Oh, I'm happy to say I've never broken a leg, but it's come really close. I did have my glasses like whacked off my face a couple of times, back in the day, but always a circle would instantly clear and people would help me find my glasses and put them on my face, and but again, as always, it's community. Moshing is a community activity, not a bunch of individuals bashing into each other, but a community response to music that you're all sharing the experience of.
Actually, I wonder what your experience was like doing a wall of death whenever they do like the harder metal shows. They line up on each side and they kind of charge at each other to make like a giant.
You will not find me at those shows. You certainly won't find me in the Wall of Death. But I did get, I saw Nirvana at a, a college gym. They were playing. Mudhoney was playing, and Nirvana ran up and did a secret set before them. And I was in the crowd, and the whole crowd pressed forward. You know, there was only like 400 of us. It was an amazing night. And a dude just grabbed me and pulled me up into the crowd. And it was the only time I ever crowd surfed. And I can see the appeal. Like, it was amazing. Like, I was up above the crowd, eye level with Kurt Cobain, and like kind of, it was really freaking exciting. So I see, I don't do it because I don't like putting boots on somebody's face, but it was part of a magnificent experience, for sure. Thanks to whoever that dude was behind me who didn't even ask. He just threw me on the crowd.
Actually, I tend to wonder, after security grabs you, so you're not going up onto the stage or anything, if they allow them to like just circle back and just get back into the crowd, they have to like kind of work your way back up.
Depends on the concert. Yeah. I saw a show just recently. It wasn't Coach Party. It was who was it? Then the gal was like, all the girls on the stage. It was at Sprints. She was like, all the girls get on the fucking stage, and like just pulled everybody. And the whole show, she was like, guys, we're at a rock show. Like, you guys can jump up and down. You can do whatever the hell you want. Like, we're in a circular thing. Like, go nuts. Like, and I liked watching. I mean, I'm not one for like I say, a bunch of individualistic, elbows in the eyeballs. But I did like that she was like, let's do something here. Like, let's do it. And then and the show did end with like, a couple hundred gals on the stage, which I thought was pretty awesome. I
say, guys, be respectful and don't hit your woman, but have fun here. So
yeah. Well, and like let the women will do what they want to do, and you'll do what you want to do, and keep your hands off. And that's how to be at a show.
Yeah. Actually, we're going to say mosh responsibly. That's our deal.
Mosh responsibly. Yeah.
Yes.
That's what I believe in.
All right. So I guess, Evan, we have pretty good questions here. Pretty good. So here, let's jump to some extra fun ones. Ready?
Yeah, let's do it.
All right. So in case there's a particular dish I have not heard about out of Paris there, but what would you consider your favorite food?
I would say Szechuan, Chinese food for sure. Noodles or braised tofu or something like that. But Szechuan spices are where it's at.
It almost sounded like he was just inching towards chicken there at first, but it was like,
hell no.
No, he's vegan. So, all right, it's right at that too. But I should not know Szechuan did like noodles or any of the other stuff you had mentioned there too. So that just
if you check out mala Chinese food, it's like a street food, and they do like a mala dry pot. That I would have to say that's one of my favorite foods of all time. You can pick all your ingredients, and they will make it really freaking spicy, and your mouth goes numb. It's great.
So which is just another day for tasting very spicy. Can't say Cajun because I don't think Cajun is hot as like those sorts of peppers are.
Oh yeah, yeah.
All right, it's all great choices there. This one kind of does like the TV and movie series, but right. I don't know if you any into those at all. I know you mentioned earlier you didn't have a TV, so I don't know. Are you into any movies?
Well, we stream some things. We watched The Sopranos during the pandemic, but I don't really have any TV that I've been watching lately. I'm pretty interested in the new British SNL. I think I'm in the minority of Americans. I think when I say I think that is actually a pretty funny thing, and I hope to see where what you can really see is like how British humor and American humor are not the same thing, and I hope that we continue to see how those things interact with each other to make a whole different format than what SNL currently is. So that's the one I'm most interested in right now.
I don't know. Is Ricky Gervais kind of helping out right there? Because I know he helped do the whole thing with The Office, that sort of deal.
Yeah, as far as I know, Tina Fey was actually the one who got involved in this one. But it's just, like the British have a very well developed sense of what a British comedic skit is, and it's just not. I mean, it's way more Monty Python than it is SNL. But putting the Monty Python and SNL kind of like into each other does kind of make for some interesting stuff. I hope it makes for some interesting stuff. I hope it doesn't just get more and more like American comedy, because I think British comedy's way, it's a deep well of cool stuff.
I think about it too in terms of like even the accent too. It sorry for swearing too, but at the same time it's also like, what are we, a bunch of fucking pansies here or something? So yeah.
So, yeah, I mean, there's a whole lot of. The only thing I don't understand is why they don't have any East Asians or South Asians on the show, because it's like London has so many South Asians. It's weird to me to think of that they don't feel they need that for some of their skits.
Not sure, but hopefully they change it at some point.
Yeah,
so, remains to be seen. But nonetheless, great choices. Not sure if you drink, but if you do drink any alcohol, I guess, do you have a favorite? And then what's your favorite non-alcoholic drink?
I'd say a Pint de Blonde is my favorite, is my most frequent drink. Just whatever the blonde is at the bar. I like to keep it 5%-ish in the beer, because like now you can go just get yourself a pint of 8.5, and after 2 of those, you're not going to be able to play well. I'll tell you that. And the wine, I was never a wine guy, but you live in France, you're going to find out that wine is freaking delicious. So, Côte du Rhône red is my favorite red. And then for a non-alcoholic, I would definitely say Orangina. I freaking love how easy those are to find around here.
Well, it's like you live in France, so I think it's sort of a requirement to at least have some sort of wine drinking involved.
Oh, yeah.
Even at Bordeaux there too. So
yeah, for sure.
So I know Julia that I mentioned earlier, he's talked about wine country, that sort of stuff.
Yeah. So. Yeah. I mean, it's real. The wine here, and like, in the US, if you get a $7 bottle of wine or something, it's horrifying. It's fortified, Boone's, Mad Dog, whatever the hell. And here you can get a $3.50 bottle of wine, and it's great. It's great. And if you spend $20 on a bottle of wine, your friends will be like, oh, like he's serious, like he's really trying something. So I appreciate that too.
The French do anything with their hands when they're gesturing at all, or is that pretty much the Italians?
They don't do the Italian. So I started by learning Italian, Spanish and then Italian. And, the Italians always talk with their hands. And I was told pretty early on, like, you don't do this in French. It just doesn't translate at all. So the French have this kind of like, they have a couple of gestures. They don't even know they're doing them. But they mainly have facial stuff, though, which I do, but I can't really do yet. But they sure can.
We'll save it for the opera in that case. So
yeah.
Totally. All right. All great choices. I'm not sure if you did mention this earlier, but did you have any other hobbies outside of music and graphic design?
I never used to believe in hobbies, because I was like, if you're going to do something, like, go nuts, But I would say the radio, the kind of like DJing for each other that Paige and I did for, for for a year there, that was a really nice hobby. And I would love to do more of that, but I don't often. And then, like, I guess if you want to call doing the New York Times crossword a hobby, I sure like to do that.
Guess whatever floats your boat there too. So, all right,
Yeah.
that's interesting. And for lots of fun questions, I guess in terms of music wise, have you listened to anyone a good bit recently, whether they're mainstream or indie?
Yeah, man. There's so much good stuff happening in France right now, and a lot of it's happening in English, so it's not hard to, there's a low cost of entry. But I've also been, catching up on cool French stuff from the 80s and 90s and stuff. So I'm going through a musical renaissance myself right now, in terms of through the years, but some contemporary stuff that I've seen that's really good. There's a band called Go-Go Juice that is based in Rouen here in France. That's very much in the kind of like Strokes meets Pavement. And they're really charismatic, and they're just getting, every show I see of theirs, they get better and better. That I would definitely recommend people check out. There's a band called Mansion's Cellar, and they just put out a new album called Shit Show, and the song Shit Show is so freaking good. I just have that on. I was just I've sent it to so many friends, and I'm like, you got to check it out. Like, the guitar part's in 5, but the drums are in 4. And, just like, I really dig it. And that whole album is really good. There's a band called Secret Girls. They're also from Rouen, who are, they're a really good show live. The drummer has not really cymbals, but like tuned heavy pieces of metal, bang, that he'll hit on the cymbal stands, and then his hi-hat is like a hi-hat on top of a huge sheet of metal that makes kind of its own sound. And then behind him he has like these giant custom homemade chimes that are like kind of like bing dong, like heavy metal chimes, and the whole band is kind of tuned to each other to be able to work with his thing. But he's also just a super cool drummer. So they're definitely worth, if you can check out video, they have a bunch of videos of them. And then I gotta say, because it took over my feed, and then I'll mention it to friends who are music lovers and they won't have ever even heard of them. But if you haven't heard Angine de Poitrine yet, I think they're cool. That main song that I've heard, Sarnies, is super cool. Are you familiar with them? Oh man, see, that's the thing. It's so funny. It's all up in my feed. It's like every other thing is them. Just check them out. It's like, you got to check it out in video, because the graphic delivery is half the fun. But check them out. Angine de Poitrine is what they're called. So, and then, like I say, Special Friend is a really good, like, heartfelt, kind of melancholy tinged band. And there's another band here in Paris called Good Afternoon, who are kind of strokesy, and they're definitely going places quick. So yeah, man, I could just keep going, but that's plenty. That's a starter pack.
You have to get the DLC and all the extension packs with a little extra cost and that sort of stuff. So,
Yeah, exactly.
actually, I would say at the same time, I think you've been looking up, I guess, French artists, or maybe people whose country of origin was France in this case. So maybe that's why they keep showing up in your feed.
Yeah. Well, I mean, they're actually Quebecois, so it's francophone, but yeah, I mean, if you're into math rock, if you're into like I don't know, it's instrumental, it's cool, and it's got a graphic approach that is, very unique. So it's cool.
All right, those are all great choices there. All right, so we are down to one more question on my podcast. I guess before we jump into it, would you like to ask me anything real quick?
Man, I've wanted to get your answer to each of the questions I've asked, because it's the more kind of conversational mode. But I guess, what are 3 things that you've been digging this week?
In terms of music wise, or I guess trying to figure too, because actually I did go to a concert recently. That's what the shirt here represents. This was the British post-punk band Bush.
Oh, wow, okay.
So I was listening to some of it too. They actually played an album I grew up listening to a good bit, was 16 Stone.
Yeah. Well, they for a while, they had the guitarist from Silkworm was playing in Bush, if I remember correctly, which was, to me, a really bizarre thing. But he's a super cool guitarist, so it made me kind of rethink Bush a little bit, from their radio singles, which is all I really knew.
But after that, let's really get to the darker side of the music with the death metal and all that stuff.
Oh, yeah.
So I think, just to name a couple, most of them are US based, but I know one, Poland, was Behemoth, which I'm going to go see next month. So I'm actually super stoked about that. But other ones have been bands I'm actually going to do drumming on here too. So I know I'm a drummer as well. So,
yeah.
And I play on electric sets as well. And I do drum covers from death metal artists, and at least the ones I feel comfortable with, because it's definitely one that works some good sweat, all that stuff, and definitely causes you to think a good bit too. So I want to make sure I'm comfortable with doing it before I jump into it.
Yeah.
So various death metal artists, to say that case, like Morbid Angel, Deicide, and Immolation from New York. Yeah. Anything else?
I remember there's a guy who worked at the practice space. I'm blanking on his name, but he had a metal band that actually, they were pretty cool. But God, now I cannot remember. Sounded a little like Immolation, but I can't remember what they were called. Oh well.
I would say Suffocation, because I think Julia from Go Rod mentioned they came through Paris a couple times, but probably not. It's whatever.
Right on.
All right. Anything else?
I think I'm done. We've been going on a while now.
Almost reaching an hour and 40-some minutes, give or take. So, but I think this last question here, I think, might cause you to ramble a little bit, but let's see what you got. So, given the amount of negativity that you have been seeing going around the world these days, not too sure what the French news is showing in terms of what's going on, like what Iran or even over here in the US. So these days, I think people need some sort of hope. Mm-hmm. So what would be your message of hope for musicians and people out there so they can move forward with their lives?
It's tough, man. It's a very strange time. But I will say that the thing that has always worked for me in the past still seems to be working, which is, I think music is one of the best places to find kind of the soul vitamins that you need to get through. So I feel like, going to shows is a really great way to keep from going crazy. And of course, making music is a great way to keep from going crazy. I feel like you just have to find human connection. I mean, I'm certainly in favor of political activism and things too, although my feelings on that get dark quick. And it kind of circles back. it kind of circles back to you. We just have each other. We just have to. You have to get the human connections. That's why you stay the hell away from AI. It's why you make sure to go out to live music. It's why you try to listen to new music instead of just listening to the albums that that you knew from when you were 22. It's why you shed an instrument. It's why you have a band and you guys get together and you practice hard and you dream up new song structures that no one has done before, and that is what we have at the end of our lives. So it's what we have to have. It's what we need to be as conscious of as we can be while it's happening. All those things that you're going to be nostalgic for later, you experience them at first, maybe unconsciously. The more conscious you can become of the things that you appreciate in your life, I think the richer your life gets. And the more you seek out those things, the richer your life gets. And when there's a bunch of fucking nonsense in the news, like just completely mind-breaking nonsense, you really have to go find things that aren't nonsense and use those to get through, that stuff. So I think that is relying on each other, relying on other people who love the music that you love, and or playing with people who love the music you love is a great way to do it. And then the one concrete recommendation that I would have is a musician that I didn't mention just before, but who I would highly recommend for keeping your brain in one piece is Jeffrey Lewis from New York. It's a great songwriter. I think one of the best songwriters working, super prolific too. And his songs will they're just so human that they will ground your experience, and they're funny, and they're just how hard he works comes across. I mean, he also makes comics that he works really hard on and transmit the kind of like the weird, awkward, funny things about being human. So if somebody's actually looking for a way to keep from going crazy in these times, I would say just like start listening to Jeffrey Lewis and pick out and like just special order some of his comics, and you will not necessarily feel better, but you will feel part of something that will make you feel better. I think that's what I got.
Spoke like a true prodigy. That's okay. But thank you so much for sharing there, Evan. Really does mean a lot. Right.
Yeah, well, thanks for asking.
No worries. Actually, I did forget to ask. I guess outside of some new material, you guys got both of the Open Flames and Atomic Crystal Band. I guess you guys don't get to do any shows this year?
The Tommy Crystal is playing April 23rd, very soon at a place called Les Planquets here in Paris. And that'll be just Paige and Julien, which I'm really excited about because they have been making such cool strides in their vocals and interwoven guitars. And then Tommy Crystal, the 4-piece band, is playing June 18th in Paris at a really cool place called Pop-Up du Label. And that is going to be a really, I feel like that's going to be an important show for us because we've just got so many new things that are, I think, coming into focus. And it's our first headlining gig in Paris. So I'm really excited about that one because we've just been working our way up through Paris because it's a whole city with its whole own scene and we're brand new, and then hopefully Open Flames will be playing sometime in 2026. We've been working really hard on these songs. So, and I think Open Flames will be having an album release. I would think it's going to be in 2026. Tommy Crystal, I'm not sure. Oh, one exciting thing that might be happening, it's not for sure, but is that Sleepy Kitty, the band that Paige and I have had for so long, our third album was released kind of mid-late pandemic era on vinyl, and it didn't get as much of a kind of attention as our others had gotten. So there is a label that might be re-releasing that in 2026, a new label that's based between Florida and Paris. So that's something to keep an eye out for. That's not confirmed yet, but it certainly looks like it's going to happen, and I hope it does. And they're good folks, and and that label's called Dead Patriarchs. They're just getting rolling themselves, but that's a thing that I'm pretty excited about. So we got a bunch of stuff coming up. Yeah, man, so much. And then Sarah Ferreck's album is coming out this fall. That one's going to be really cool. That's for francophonic listeners, but the melodies are for everyone. Yeah, so lots of shows, lots of albums. Yeah, a lot of things coming in 2026.
Enough to keep you entertained for a good while there too.
Oh yeah, for sure.
All right. Since we have reached the end of the podcast right here, would you like to give a shout out to anybody real quick?
Well, always shout out to Paige. She's the other half of my whole soul. But I got to give a shout out to Dave Eastman for linking us up, and for all the work that we're about to do this week. And yeah, I mean, I'm going to be alerting all my bands to this. So, shout out to all of them, and to Jeffrey Lewis. He has really been helping get me through this period. I kind of tell him from time to time about a song that I like or a thing that he does that I like, but I don't know if he knows how much I just kind of globally have been using him as a way of keeping sane, So yeah. Oh, and I will say I would give a shout out to Nick from Chick, who I just met last night. Super cool guy. We had a great conversation, and I hope his new project goes really well. He's turns out to be an inspiring guy too.
That's good. And just real quick, for the audience sake, can you just list what social media and streaming platforms your music is on so they can check you out and interact?
Oh yeah, you can find the Tommy Crystal and Sleepy Kitty and the Open Flames and Sarah Ferreck, which is SARAH space FERREC. On, you got your Spotify's, you got your Deezer, you got your Apple Music. Somebody just pointed one out to me that we are on that I wasn't even aware we were on last night, but I forget the name. Bandcamp. If you look, you will find the Tommy Crystal, the Open Flames, Sleepy Kitty, Sarah Ferreck, and we'll see if there are others to add to the pile soon enough.
All right, sounds good. So good luck this year, Evan, and we have to close out like this. So, everyone, my guest today was Evan Sult. He's hailing from the lovely country of France, Paris, to be more exact. Paris for us English-speaking people. So, all right. But he was part of a good number of groups right here. Mainly the ones we were interviewing was actually Tommy Crystal Band. He also had the Open Flames. We'll give a shout out to Dave Eastman, too, for helping put this whole thing together. So, actually, did he reach out to you first, and then you reached out to me? Was that how it all went?
We had talked, the Open Flames, we had all talked, and then so when it came time to kind of spread the word about the Tommy Crystal, I thought that was a good match. So yeah, it was through him. Yeah.
All right. But you also heard from Evan here about what social media and streaming platforms he's on. So make sure to get on there and support this gentleman right here too. He's going to get some major ass out there too. And keep your eyes out for any new material they got this year. And wherever they go next in terms of their musical journey for show wise, make sure to go check them out here too. They kick some major ass. So Evan, thank you again so much again for coming on here, mate. So do stay safe. Rock, Lashley, strike a pose. Stay tuned, yo.
Right on.